70-year-old woman gives birth in nursing home. What doctors discovered next left them speechless. Before we begin, drop a comment below to tell us where you're watching from. If you believe the truth always comes out, like and subscribe. Now sit back and enjoy the story. The discovery of Eleanor Thompson's baby sends shockwaves through Maplewood Nursing Home. Residents gather in small clusters, whispering theories ranging from divine intervention to elaborate hoaxes. Some suggest Eleanor might have been hiding her pregnancy under loose-fitting clothes, while others speculate she was somehow duped into caring for someone else's child. Nurse Clara Bennett, a compassionate woman in her late 40s who has worked at Maplewood for over 2 decades, becomes obsessed with unraveling the truth. She knows Eleanor well. She's one of the few residents who still reads voraciously and loves debating current events during afternoon tea. Clara can't fathom how Eleanor could keep such a secret, especially given her frail health and frequent medical checkups. Clara begins asking questions, starting with Dr. Leonard Hayes, the facility's primary physician. He insists there's no way Eleanor could have carried a child without detection. Her last ultrasound showed nothing unusual, he says, shaking his head. And even if this were some kind of medical anomaly, where did the baby come from? Babies don't just appear out of thin air. But they did, for Eleanor. As Clara digs deeper, she notices peculiar behavior among the staff and residents. One name keeps surfacing: Margaret Hargrove, a reclusive resident on the 3rd floor who rarely leaves her room. Room 312. Rumors swirl that Margaret once had a falling out with Eleanor years ago when both lived in the same retirement community before moving to Maplewood. No one knows exactly what happened between them, but their strained relationship is common knowledge. When Clara visits Margaret's room, she finds it eerily quiet. The door is slightly ajar, and inside the air smells faintly of lavender and something metallic. Margaret sits by the window, knitting needles clicking rhythmically as she works on an unfinished blanket. When Clara asks about Eleanor and the mysterious baby, Margaret's lips curl into a cryptic smile. "Oh dear," Margaret says softly, her voice like gravel. "You're asking the wrong questions. It's not where the baby came from. It's when." Before Clara can press further, Margaret dismisses her with a wave of her hand, returning to her knitting. Frustrated but intrigued, Clara decides to investigate room 312 more closely after hours. That night, armed with a flashlight and determination, Clara sneaks back to Margaret's room. Inside, she discovers a trove of old photographs taped to the walls, all depicting a younger Eleanor holding a newborn baby. The images are faded but unmistakable. In some photos, Margaret stands beside Eleanor, smiling warmly, a stark contrast to their current icy dynamic. Among the clutter, Clara also finds a journal belonging to Margaret. Flipping through its pages, she uncovers entries detailing Margaret's grief over losing her own daughter decades ago. One passage stands out. "I thought I'd lost her forever. But miracles do happen, don't they? Time bends for those who know how to listen." Suddenly, footsteps echo down the hallway. Panicked, Clara hides behind the curtain just as Margaret enters the room. From her hiding spot, Clara watches Margaret approach the crib tucked in the corner, a crib she hadn't noticed earlier. Inside lies another baby, swaddled tightly and sleeping soundly. Margaret whispers something unintelligible, then places a small silver locket around the baby's neck. Before leaving the room, she glances toward the window, muttering, "It's almost time." Eleanor Thompson sits in her wheelchair, cradling the newborn with an expression of serene detachment. Her calmness unnerves everyone around her, especially Nurse Clara, who has begun to suspect that this mystery runs deeper than anyone realizes. When Clara finally works up the courage to ask Eleanor directly about the baby, she receives a cryptic response. "He was always meant to be here," Eleanor says softly, stroking the infant's cheek. "Some things are beyond our understanding." Clara presses further, asking about the father and how it's possible for someone her age to give birth. Eleanor simply smiles enigmatically and replies, "Time isn't as linear as you think, dear. Sometimes what seems impossible is merely inevitable." Her words leave Clara more confused than ever. Could Eleanor be suffering from some form of dementia? Or is there something else at play, something otherworldly? Determined to uncover answers, Clara returns to Margaret's room during daylight hours, hoping to catch her off guard. This time, Margaret doesn't resist when Clara confronts her about the journal and the second baby in the crib. Instead, she invites Clara to sit down and begins sharing fragments of her past. Decades ago, Margaret explains, she had a daughter named Sarah, a bright, spirited girl who tragically died in childbirth at just 22 years old. The baby didn't survive either, leaving Margaret heartbroken and embittered. But one night, while grieving alone in her home, Margaret claims she heard a voice whispering to her, a voice that promised her daughter would return. "I thought I'd gone mad," Margaret admits, her hands trembling as she clutches the silver locket. But then strange things started happening. Shadows moved where they shouldn't. Clocks stopped ticking, and eventually, Sarah came back. Clara listens intently, trying to make sense of Margaret's story. She asks about the connection between Sarah and Eleanor, but Margaret only shakes her head. "You'll see soon enough," she says cryptically. Later that evening, Clara sneaks into room 312 again, determined to find concrete evidence. As she sifts through Margaret's belongings, she discovers a hidden compartment in the dresser containing a stack of letters addressed to Eleanor. Each letter is dated decades earlier and signed by none other than Margaret herself. The contents of the letters reveal a shocking truth. Eleanor and Margaret were once close friends and co-conspirators. Together, they dabbled in rituals involving time manipulation after discovering an ancient text buried in the library archives of their former retirement community. According to the letters, they believed these rituals could bend the fabric of reality, allowing them to rewrite history and reclaim lost loved ones. One passage stands out. "We've done it, Eleanor. We've opened the door. Sarah will live again, and so will your son, the one you lost all those years ago. But beware, tampering with time comes at a cost." Realization dawns on Clara. The baby Eleanor gave birth to isn't new. It's her long-dead son, brought back through whatever temporal rift Margaret created. And the baby in room 312? It must be Sarah, reborn as well. Nurse Clara Bennett, still reeling from the shock of Eleanor's inexplicable childbirth, begins piecing together fragments of information. Her curiosity deepens when she overhears hushed conversations among the staff about Eleanor's behavior in the months leading up to the event. The first clue comes from reviewing Eleanor's medical records. While her official diagnosis was a minor stroke that led to her admission 6 months ago, Clara notices something odd. Eleanor's health had inexplicably improved over time. Her blood pressure stabilized, her energy levels increased, and even her previously brittle bones showed signs of strengthening during routine scans. It's as if her body had begun rejuvenating itself, a phenomenon no doctor can explain. Next, Clara investigates the strange deliveries mentioned by housekeeping staff. A series of packages containing herbal supplements and rare teas arrived at Eleanor's room every 2 weeks, all sent under an anonymous name. The labels on the boxes are written in elegant cursive, but there's no return address. When Clara examines the contents of one unopened package, she finds jars of powdered herbs with unfamiliar names like Aetherius root and Kronos blossom. She takes a sample to Dr. Hayes, who admits he's never seen anything like them before. But it's the reports of late-night visitors that truly unsettle Clara. Several residents claim they've spotted someone, or multiple people, sneaking into Eleanor's room after hours. Their descriptions vary wildly. Mrs. Gladys Harper, an insomniac who often roams the halls at night, swears she saw a tall figure clad in black robes slipping into Eleanor's room. "He moved like smoke," she whispers nervously. Mr. Harold Jenkins, a retired detective with a keen eye for detail, describes seeing a short, elderly man wearing thick glasses and carrying what looked like a leather-bound book. "He seemed harmless enough," Harold says, "but I couldn't shake the feeling he didn't belong here." And then there's Mabel Dixon, whose vivid imagination tends to embellish reality, insisting she saw a glowing figure hovering outside Eleanor's window one evening. Determined to get answers, Clara decides to stake out Eleanor's room herself. That night, Clara positions herself near the nurse's station, pretending to review patient charts while keeping a close watch on Eleanor's door. Hours pass without incident until, just after midnight, she hears faint footsteps echoing down the hallway. Peering around the corner, she sees a shadowy figure approaching Eleanor's room. To her surprise, it's not the ominous man in black or the bespectacled elder described by the residents. It's Margaret Hargrove, shuffling quietly in her slippers, clutching a small bundle wrapped in cloth. Clara follows her silently, heart pounding. Through the crack in Eleanor's door, she watches as Margaret places the bundle gently on the bedside table. Eleanor, awake and alert despite the late hour, greets her warmly. "You shouldn't take such risks," Eleanor whispers, her voice tinged with both gratitude and concern. "If anyone finds out—" "They won't," Margaret interrupts firmly. "Not unless you tell them. Besides, we're so close now. Just a little longer, and everything will be set right." Before Clara can process what she's hearing, Margaret turns toward the door. Panicking, Clara ducks into an empty supply closet nearby, holding her breath as Margaret passes by. Once she's sure the coast is clear, Clara slips back into Eleanor's room to examine the bundle. Inside, she finds another jar of the mysterious herbs, and a note written in the same elegant handwriting as the delivery labels. The message reads, "Patience is key, trust the process, he will come when the time is ripe." The next morning, Clara confronts Eleanor, demanding answers. At first, Eleanor tries to brush her off, claiming the herbs are simply part of a holistic wellness regimen recommended by an old friend. But Clara pushes harder, revealing what she witnessed the previous night, and mentioning Margaret's involvement. Eleanor sighs deeply, her sharp eyes softening with resignation. After a long pause, she finally speaks. "Margaret and we made a pact," she confesses. "Years ago, we discovered something extraordinary, a way to bend the rules of time and bring back what was lost. My son, he died as a baby, decades ago. And Margaret's daughter, well, you've probably guessed by now." Clara's mind races as pieces of the puzzle start falling into place. The rejuvenation, the herbs, the late-night visits. They were all part of some kind of ritual designed to manipulate time itself. "But why now?" Clara asks. "And how did this lead to—" She gestures toward the bassinet where the newborn sleeps peacefully. Eleanor hesitates, then leans closer, lowering her voice. "Because sometimes miracles require sacrifice, and not everyone agrees on what must be given up." As Eleanor speaks, Clara notices a flicker of fear in her eyes. For the first time since the mystery began, Eleanor seems genuinely afraid. As Clara continues her investigation, she begins to piece together Eleanor's history through fragments of conversations with longtime residents and dusty records in the nursing home's archives. What she uncovers paints a picture far more complex and unsettling than anyone could have imagined. The scene shifts to a younger Eleanor Thompson, vibrant and confident, working as a midwife in rural communities across the Midwest. Known for her deep knowledge of herbal remedies and fertility treatments, Eleanor was both revered and whispered about by those who sought her help. She delivered babies under moonlit skies, brewed teas said to ease childbirth pains, and crafted tinctures rumored to aid couples struggling to conceive. But Eleanor's life wasn't without its shadows. Her husband, Arthur, grew increasingly distant over the years, consumed by jealousy and suspicion. He accused her of dabbling in dark arts, pointing to the strange symbols carved into the wooden beams of their farmhouse and the peculiar rituals she performed during full moons. Their marriage unraveled when Arthur abruptly left, taking their young son, Daniel, with him. Neither father nor child was ever heard from again. Rumors swirled after Arthur's disappearance. Some claimed Eleanor used her knowledge of herbs not just to heal, but to manipulate, to bind people to her will or curse those who crossed her. Others spoke of an ancient folktale she often referenced, the legend of the eternal cradle, a mythical artifact said to grant eternal youth and restore lost loved ones. Skeptics dismissed these tales as superstition, but whispers persisted among the townsfolk that Eleanor had found a way to tap into forces beyond human understanding. Clara pieces these details together while poring over old newspaper clippings and medical journals in the nursing home library. One article catches her eye, a faded photograph of Eleanor standing beside Margaret Hargrove at a community fair decades ago. Beneath it, a caption reads, "Local healers share secrets of timeless remedies." It dawns on Clara that Eleanor and Margaret's connection runs much deeper than mere acquaintanceship. They were collaborators, perhaps even partners in exploring the boundaries of natural and supernatural healing. When Clara confronts Eleanor about her past, The elderly woman doesn't deny the accusations. Instead, she offers cryptic explanations. I've always believed there's more to this world than science can explain, Eleanor says, her voice tinged with nostalgia. Herbs, rituals, symbols, they're tools, nothing more. But they open doors. Doors most people are too afraid to walk through. Clara presses further, asking about the rumors of rejuvenation and eternal youth. Eleanor chuckles softly, shaking her head. Eternal youth? No, dear. That's not what I sought. I wanted something far simpler, and yet infinitely harder to achieve. A second chance. Clara feels a chill run down her spine. A second chance for what? Eleanor hesitates, then looks away, her gaze drifting toward the bassinet where the newborn sleeps. For love, she murmurs. For family. Later that night, unable to sleep, Clara returns to room 312, drawn by an inexplicable pull. As she approaches, she hears low chanting coming from within. Peering through the crack in the door, she sees Margaret kneeling beside the crib, holding the silver locket aloft. The air around her seems to shimmer, as though reality itself is bending. Margaret whispers words in a language Clara doesn't recognize, her voice trembling with emotion. On the wall behind her, the photographs of Eleanor and Sarah flicker like static, their faces shifting between past and present. Suddenly, Margaret turns toward the door, locking eyes with Clara. For a moment, neither moves. Then Margaret smiles, a sad, knowing smile, and says, "You shouldn't be here. Not yet." Before Clara can react, the lights flicker violently, plunging the hallway into darkness. When they come back on moments later, Margaret is gone. The medical team at Maplewood Nursing Home is baffled by the newborn's perplexing traits. While initial tests confirm that the baby is healthy and thriving, deeper analysis reveals anomalies that defy explanation. Dr. Leonard Hayes calls Nurse Clara into his office one afternoon to share the findings. He looks visibly shaken as he explains, "The baby's genetic makeup is unprecedented," he says, rubbing his temples. "There are no signs of chromosomal abnormalities or aging-related complications you'd expect from a child born to someone Eleanor's age. But here's the strangest part. His DNA only partially matches Eleanor's. It's almost like he's been spliced with another genome entirely." Clara leans forward, her pulse quickening. Could it be genetic engineering or cloning? Dr. Hayes shakes his head. It's possible, but we're talking about technology far beyond anything currently available, even in experimental programs. And there's more. His mitochondrial DNA shows markers we've never seen before. They don't match any known human database. As if on cue, the intercom buzzes with a call from the nursery. The baby has stopped feeding and seems unusually calm despite being left alone for over an hour. When Clara rushes to check on him, she finds something even stranger. The room feels different when he's present, as though time itself slows down. Nurses who enter report feeling an overwhelming sense of peace, their anxieties melting away just by standing near him. One veteran nurse whispers to Clara, "It's like he's not entirely human." Word spreads quickly among the residents and staff about the baby's peculiar qualities. Speculation runs rampant, fueled by whispered observations and half-remembered folklore. Mrs. Gladys Harper, the insomniac who often prowls the halls at night, claims she saw Eleanor performing what looked like rituals in her room late one evening. She describes strange symbols drawn in chalk on the floor, glowing faintly under the moonlight, streaming through the window. Eleanor stood in the center, chanting softly while holding the silver locket now associated with Margaret Hargrove. They weren't just random shapes, Gladys insists. They looked ancient, like something out of those history books my grandson used to read. I swear I heard her say something about opening the door. Another resident, Mr. Harold Jenkins, the retired detective, adds fuel to the fire. He points out the baby's unnaturally bright eyes, which seem to shimmer with an inner light. "And have you noticed how everyone calms down around him?" Harold asked during breakfast. "Even Mabel stopped ranting about alien abductions after holding him for 5 minutes. That's not normal." Tensions reach a boiling point when several staff members demand answers from Eleanor. She listens to their accusations calmly, her expression unreadable. When pressed about the baby's origins, she simply replies, "He came when he was ready," leaving everyone more frustrated than before. Meanwhile, Clara begins noticing cracks in Eleanor and Margaret's alliance. During one tense exchange outside room 312, Clara overhears fragments of their argument. "This wasn't supposed to happen yet," Margaret snaps, clutching the silver locket tightly. "You moved too fast." "I did what I had to do," Eleanor retorts, her voice steady but edged with anger. "We agreed this was our last chance. If we wait any longer, the window will close." Margaret shakes her head, her eyes filled with fear. "You don't understand the risks. Every time we tamper with the threads of time, we unravel something else. What if this time, it's us?" Eleanor softens slightly, placing a hand on Margaret's shoulder. "Then so be it. Sometimes sacrifices must be made for love." Their conversation ends abruptly as they notice Clara eavesdropping. Margaret glares at her, her lips pressed into a thin line, while Eleanor gives her a piercing look that sends shivers down Clara's spine. Later that night, Clara dreams of the baby. In her dream, he floats above her bed, his luminous eyes locking onto hers. Though he doesn't speak, she hears a voice, a chorus of voices, whispering inside her mind. "She opened the door, but she cannot close it. Beware the price of second chances." Clara wakes in a cold sweat, her heart pounding. She realizes then that the mystery goes far beyond Eleanor, Margaret, or even the baby. Whatever force brought the child into existence isn't done shaping their lives or demanding payment. Clara's unease reaches a fever pitch as the days pass. The baby's presence continues to cast an eerie calm over Maplewood. But Clara can't shake the feeling that something darker lies beneath the surface. Determined to uncover the truth, she resolves to take matters into her own hands. One moonless night, while the nursing home is quiet and most residents are asleep, Clara slips into Eleanor's room. Her heart hammers in her chest as she searches through drawers and shelves, careful not to disturb anything too much. Finally, tucked inside a hollowed-out book on the bottom shelf, she finds what she's been looking for, a worn leather-bound journal. The pages are filled with meticulous handwriting, sketches and diagrams, evidence of decades of obsession. As Clara flips through the entries, a chilling narrative begins to emerge. Ancient texts. Eleanor had spent years studying obscure manuscripts about creating life outside conventional means. One passage references the eternal cradle, a mythical artifact capable of bending time and biology to recreate lost loved ones. Another describes rituals tied to celestial alignments, claiming they could unlock the womb of creation. Celestial energy. Eleanor documented experiments involving harnessing energy from solar eclipses and lunar phases. She believed these events acted as conduits for cosmic forces that could rewrite biological laws. Sketches depict elaborate setups using crystals, mirrors, and herbal concoctions to amplify this energy. The farmhouse lab. Most disturbing of all are the detailed plans for a makeshift laboratory hidden in the basement of Eleanor's old farmhouse. Diagrams show strange machinery cobbled together from scavenged parts, surrounded by chalk drawings of intricate symbols. Notes indicate it was designed to simulate conditions necessary for manipulating DNA, or perhaps something more metaphysical. Among the final entries, one phrase stands out, written in bold capital letters: "The door will open only once. Be ready to pay the price." Clara feels a cold knot tighten in her stomach. Whatever Eleanor and Margaret did, it wasn't just science, it was sorcery, and now the consequences are beginning to ripple outward. The next morning, Clara confronts Eleanor, brandishing the journal as proof of her discoveries. At first, Eleanor tries to deflect, insisting the notes are merely theoretical musings. But when Clara presses her about the farmhouse lab and the celestial rituals, Eleanor's composure crumbles. "You weren't supposed to find that," Eleanor says quietly, sinking into her chair. For the first time, she looks frail, not physically, but emotionally. "Why, Eleanor?" Clara demands, her voice trembling. "Why would you do this? Risk everything? For what?" Eleanor stares at the newborn sleeping peacefully in his bassinet. Her eyes glisten with tears as she speaks. "For Daniel," she whispers. "My son. He died before he even had a chance at life. I couldn't let him go. Not completely. Not when I knew there might be another way." Clara shakes her head, struggling to process what she's hearing. "But this isn't Daniel, is it? This baby." He's not human, is he? Eleanor hesitates, then nods slowly. Not entirely. The ritual worked, but imperfectly. He carries pieces of Daniel's essence. Yes, but also something else. Something ancient. Before Clara can respond, a commotion erupts in the hallway. Residents gather around room 312, whispering fearfully. Margaret has barricaded herself inside, chanting loudly in a language no one recognizes. Clara rushes to room 312, where she finds Margaret standing in the center of the glowing symbols drawn on the floor. In her hands, she holds a silver locket, which now emits a pulsating light. The air crackles with energy, and the photographs on the walls ripple like water. "Margaret!" Clara shouts, trying to break through the tension. "What are you doing?" Margaret turns to her face pale but resolute. "I'm closing the door," she says, "before it consumes us all." Eleanor appears behind Clara, clutching the baby tightly. "No!" she cries. "You can't undo this. We've come too far." Margaret shakes her head sadly. "You don't understand, Eleanor. Every time we tamper with the threads of time, we unravel ourselves. Sarah, Daniel, they're not meant to return this way. It's unnatural." As the two women argue, the baby begins to wail, a sound unlike any infant cry Clara has ever heard. It reverberates through the room, shaking the very foundations of the nursing home. The glowing symbols flare brighter, and the locket in Margaret's hand starts to burn with an otherworldly heat. Suddenly, the crib in the corner vanishes, replaced by a swirling void. Shadows stretch toward it, pulling objects and people closer. "This is the price!" Margaret screams, throwing the locket into the void. "We must seal it before it takes more than we can afford." Clara's confrontation with Eleanor reaches a breaking point as the weight of the journal's revelations hangs heavy in the air. Eleanor, cornered and visibly shaken, finally breaks down. Her confession spills out in fragments, each word unraveling decades of grief, obsession, and forbidden experimentation. "It started with Daniel," Eleanor begins, her voice trembling. "When he was taken from me, I couldn't bear it. My husband left, taking our son, and I never saw either of them again. But then," she pauses, swallowing hard, "then I lost Sarah." Clara frowns, confused. "Sarah? Who is Sarah?" Eleanor looks away, tears streaming down her face. "Margaret's daughter. She died giving birth to a stillborn child, the same year Daniel disappeared. That's when Margaret and I found each other. We shared the same pain, the same longing, and we vowed to do whatever it took to bring them back." Clara feels a chill creep up her spine. "But how? How could you possibly—" "I used my knowledge," Eleanor interrupts, her tone growing more fervent. "Decades of studying herbs, fertility treatments, ancient rituals. It all led me to something extraordinary. A formula. It wasn't just about restoring vitality or reversing time. It was about creating life itself. Life that could bridge the gap between past and present." She takes a deep breath, steadying herself before continuing. "When Sarah died, I managed to preserve some of her cells, enough to keep hope alive. Over the years, I experimented with merging those cells with donor material, using techniques I barely understood myself. The process wasn't natural. It required harnessing forces beyond science. Celestial energy, yes, but also something else, something older." Clara's mind races as she processes this revelation. "So the baby, he's not yours biologically?" "No," Eleanor admits, shaking her head. "He belongs to Sarah, or at least part of him does. His DNA is a hybrid, a fusion of Sarah's preserved cells and an unknown donor's genetic material. He's meant to be a vessel, a bridge connecting generations, a way to cheat death." Her words hang in the air like smoke, heavy and suffocating. Clara stares at the sleeping infant in his bassinet, suddenly seeing him in a new light. "But why now?" Clara asks. "Why did you wait until now to complete this experiment?" Eleanor hesitates, guilt flickering across her face. "Because I failed before. Every attempt ended in miscarriage or failure, until I discovered Margaret's ritual, the one tied to the silver locket. It amplified the formula, stabilized the process, but it came with risks I didn't fully understand." As if on cue, the lights flicker violently, plunging the room into shadow. A low hum fills the air, growing louder by the second. From down the hall comes a sound of frantic chanting, Margaret's voice strained and desperate. Eleanor rushes to the door, peering out into the dimly lit corridor. Residents huddle together, whispering nervously as strange phenomena ripple through the nursing home. Clocks spin backward, windows frost over despite the warm night, and faint whispers echo from unseen sources. "What's happening?" Clara demands, following Eleanor. "The ritual," Eleanor replies, her voice tinged with dread. "It's destabilizing. The door has opened wider than we intended." They hurry toward room 312, where Margaret stands in the center of the glowing symbols, clutching the silver locket. Her face is pale, sweat dripping from her brow as she chants frantically in an ancient tongue. The void in the crib pulses ominously, tendrils of darkness stretching outward like grasping hands. "You shouldn't have done this," Margaret screams, turning to Eleanor. "You've unleashed something far greater than yourself." "I had no choice," Eleanor fires back, clutching the baby protectively. "Don't you see? This is our chance to fix everything, to make things right." "No," Margaret shouts, her voice cracking. "There's no fixing what's broken without destroying what remains. This isn't Daniel or Sarah anymore. It's something else entirely. Something that doesn't belong here." The baby stirs in Eleanor's arms, his bright eyes snapping open. For a moment he seems to look directly at Clara, his gaze piercing and knowing. Then he lets out a cry, not the wail of a newborn, but a haunting, resonant sound that shakes the very walls of the nursing home. Margaret steps forward, her expression resolute. "We have to close the door," she says, gripping the locket tightly, "before it consumes us all." Eleanor hesitates, torn between fear and desperation. "If we do that, we lose him forever. We lose them both." "And if we don't," Margaret counters, "we risk tearing apart reality itself. Is that what you want? To doom everyone for the sake of your grief?" Tears stream down Eleanor's face as she looks at the baby one last time. Finally, she nods, handing him to Clara. "Take him," she whispers. "Keep him safe." Clara holds the infant close, feeling the weight of his unnatural presence. As Margaret begins the final incantation, the symbols on the floor flare with blinding light. The void in the crib expands, pulling everything toward it, photographs, furniture, even the air itself. "Now!" Margaret yells, throwing the locket into the void. A deafening roar fills the room as the portal collapses inward, sealing shut with a flash of white-hot light. When the chaos subsides, the nursing home falls silent. In the aftermath of the supernatural events, Clara reluctantly shares Eleanor's journal and the fragmented truth with Dr. Leonard Hayes and the medical team. At first, skepticism reigns. How could anyone believe such an outlandish story? But as they review the data alongside Eleanor's meticulous notes, their disbelief gives way to awe and unease. "This shouldn't be possible," Dr. Hayes mutters, flipping through the journal. His hands tremble slightly as he examines sketches of celestial alignments and formulas for biological manipulation. The science, assuming you can even call it that, is centuries ahead of anything we know. And yet, he trails off, glancing at the baby, who lies peacefully in his crib, seemingly untouched by the chaos that unfolded around him. Despite the ethical quandaries, there's no denying the miracle before them, a healthy infant born under impossible circumstances, thriving against all odds. What Eleanor did, it's not just groundbreaking, it's dangerous, another doctor adds, shaking her head. She wasn't just pushing boundaries, she was rewriting them, playing God, essentially. The room falls silent as the weight of those words sinks in. While the doctors grapple with the implications, the residents of Maplewood Nursing Home begin to see the baby in a different light. Word spreads quickly among the residents about what happened, or at least the parts Clara chooses to share. Though some remain wary, many find themselves drawn to the baby's presence. He seems to radiate a quiet warmth, soothing anxieties and mending old wounds simply by being near. Mrs. Gladys Harper, once distrustful of Eleanor's motives, now spends hours rocking the baby in the sunlit common room. "He feels like forgiveness," she murmurs one afternoon, tears glistening in her eyes. "Like maybe we don't have to carry our regrets forever." Even Mr. Harold Jenkins, the skeptical former detective, softens when the baby reaches up to grab his finger during feeding time. Never thought I'd say this, he admits gruffly, but he's got a way of making you forget your troubles. For the first time in years, laughter echoes through the halls of Maplewood. Residents gather around the bassinet, sharing stories of loved ones lost and dreams left unfulfilled. The baby becomes more than just a mysterious child. He becomes a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the face of grief, life finds a way to bloom anew. While the nursing home begins to heal, Eleanor withdraws into herself, burdened by guilt and regret. She spends most of her days sitting alone in her room, staring out the window at the distant horizon. When Clara visits her, she finds the elderly woman frail once more, her vitality drained as if the cost of her actions has finally caught up with her. I never meant for any of this to happen, Eleanor confesses quietly, her voice heavy with sorrow. I only wanted to bring back the people I loved, to fix what I thought was broken. But you gave us something else instead, Clara replies gently. Something unexpected. Something beautiful. Eleanor shakes her head, tears streaming down her face. At what cost, Clara? Margaret was right. We tampered with forces we didn't understand. What if the door isn't fully closed? What if he's still connected to whatever lies beyond? Clara doesn't have an answer. Instead, she takes Eleanor's hand, offering what little comfort she can. Margaret, too, bears the scars of their ordeal. Her health declines rapidly in the weeks following the ritual, leaving her bedridden and weak. Yet despite her failing body, her mind remains sharp, haunted by visions of the void and the whispers that linger in its wake. One evening, Clara visits Margaret in room 312. The walls are bare now, stripped of the photographs and symbols that once adorned them. Only the silver locket remains, resting on the bedside table. He'll grow stronger, Margaret says without preamble, her voice barely above a whisper. As he gets older, the pieces of Sarah and Daniel within him will fade. But the other part, the ancient part, it won't. It will shape him in ways none of us can predict. Clara swallows hard, clutching the edge of the chair. What should we do? Margaret closes her eyes, exhaling slowly. Love him. Protect him. But never forget what he is, a bridge between worlds. And bridges, my dear, are fragile things. Months pass, and life at Maplewood Nursing Home returns to a semblance of normalcy. The baby, named Daniel after Eleanor's long-lost son, becomes a cherished member of the community, cared for by the residents who view him as both a blessing and a mystery. Yet whispers persist about the events surrounding his birth. Late at night, when the winds howl and shadows dance across the walls, some claim they hear faint chanting coming from room 312. Others swear they've seen the silver locket glowing faintly beneath Margaret's pillow, though no one dares touch it. As for Clara, she keeps Eleanor's journal locked away, vowing to protect its secrets. But on quiet nights when the moon hangs low in the sky, she sometimes wonders, did they truly close the door? Or did they merely delay the inevitable? And deep within Daniel's bright eyes, something stirs, a spark of ancient energy waiting patiently for the day it might awaken again. The sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of amber and lavender. Its fading light streams through the windows of Eleanor's room at Maplewood Nursing Home, casting long shadows that dance softly across the walls. The air feels lighter now, freer, as if the weight of secrets and regrets has lifted, leaving behind a fragile but enduring peace. In the center of it all sits Eleanor, cradling Daniel in her arms. He is tiny, impossibly perfect, his delicate fingers brushing against her weathered hand as he stirs in his sleep. Each movement tugs at something deep within her, a mix of joy, sorrow, and an ache so profound it feels almost sacred. For the first time in decades, she feels whole, not because she's undone the past, but because she's found something new to hold on to, something worth living for. Clara leans against the doorway, watching them with a soft smile. Over the past few months, an unlikely bond has formed between them, a partnership born out of shared secrets, mutual determination, and the unspoken understanding that they've both been changed forever by the events surrounding Daniel's arrival. Together, they've decided to raise him as a family unit, blending generations under one roof. It's an arrangement neither could have foreseen, yet one that feels strangely inevitable. I still can't believe you're staying, Clara says gently, breaking the silence. Her voice carries a note of admiration and perhaps a hint of disbelief. You could go anywhere. Start fresh somewhere else. Eleanor shakes her head, her gaze never leaving Daniel's face. No, she replies firmly, though her voice trembles slightly. This is where I belong now, where we belong. These walls may hold ghosts, but they also hold hope, and maybe that's enough. Her voice catches on the last word, and Clara steps closer, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You've done something extraordinary, Eleanor, Clara says quietly, her tone filled with conviction. Whatever doubts or fears people have, they'll fade. All anyone will remember is the love you gave this child. That's what matters most. Eleanor nods, though her expression remains thoughtful. Earlier that day, she made a decision that weighed heavily on her heart. She gathered every scrap of her research, the journals detailing years of experiments, the notes scrawled in frantic haste, the sketches of celestial alignments and ancient symbols, and burned them in the fireplace. Watching the flames consume her life's work was painful, like saying goodbye to a part of herself. But she knew it was necessary. The knowledge was too dangerous, too volatile, to risk falling into the wrong hands. Whatever power she had tapped into would remain a mystery, locked away forever in the annals of time. Now as night falls and the stars begin to emerge, Eleanor carries Daniel to the window. She gazes up at the vast expanse of the heavens, her breath catching at the sight of constellations shimmering brightly against the velvet darkness. Their light stretches across unimaginable distances, connecting worlds beyond comprehension. She feels a pang of wonder and perhaps a flicker of fear as she considers the vastness of the universe and the role her grandson might play within it. Is he truly just a child, or is he something more? A bridge between realms, a spark of ancient energy waiting to awaken. You'll change everything, my love, she whispers softly, brushing a kiss against his forehead. Her voice is barely audible, carried away by the night breeze. And I hope you'll forgive me when the time comes. Daniel lets out a contented sigh, nestling closer to her chest. In that moment, Eleanor allows herself to believe that some miracles are worth the cost, that even amidst uncertainty, there is beauty in beginnings. Outside Eleanor's room, life at Maplewood continues its quiet rhythm. Residents gather in the common areas, sharing stories over cups of tea and plates of cookies. Laughter echoes down the halls once more, mingling with the faint strains of music from the old record player in the corner. Daniel has become the heart of the nursing home, a source of light and connection for everyone who crosses his path. Mrs. Gladys Harper, once bitter and distrustful, spends hours rocking him in the sunlit common room, humming lullabies she hasn't sung since her own children were young. Mr. Harold Jenkins, the retired detective, reads aloud from dusty novels, his gruff voice softening when Daniel reaches up to grab his finger. Even Mabel Dixon, whose wild tales of alien abductions often left others rolling their eyes, finds solace in holding the baby, whispering secrets only he can understand. For Clara, caring for Daniel has brought a sense of purpose she hadn't realized she was missing. Though she's still young compared to most of the residents, she feels a kinship with them now, a shared understanding of the fragility and resilience of life. Together, she and Eleanor navigate the challenges and joys of raising a child, forming a bond that transcends age and circumstance. Meanwhile, Margaret Hargrove spends her final days in quiet reflection. Her health declines rapidly after the ritual, leaving her bedridden and weak. Yet her mind remains sharp, haunted by visions of the void and the whispers that linger in its wake. One evening, as Clara visits her in room 312, Margaret speaks with surprising clarity. "He'll grow stronger," she says, her voice barely above a whisper. Her frail hand clutches the silver locket resting on her bedside table. As he gets older, the pieces of Sarah and Daniel within him will fade, but the other part, the ancient part, it won't. It will shape him in ways none of us can predict. Clara swallows hard, clutching the edge of the chair. What should we do? Margaret closes her eyes, exhaling slowly. Love him, protect him, but never forget what he is, a bridge between worlds. And bridges, my dear, are fragile things. Days later, Margaret passes away peacefully in her sleep. Her funeral is a somber affair, attended by the residents of Maplewood and a handful of distant relatives. As they lay her to rest, Clara places the silver locket in her hands, ensuring it accompanies her into eternity. Weeks turn into months, and life at Maplewood settles into a new rhythm. The baby grows quickly, his bright eyes reflecting the love and care poured into him by those around him. Eleanor and Clara continue to raise him together, finding strength in each other and in the community they've built. One crisp autumn night, Eleanor takes Daniel outside to the courtyard garden. The stars shine brightly overhead, their light undimmed by city lights. She wraps him snugly in a blanket and sits on a bench, gazing up at the heavens. "Do you see them, my love?" she murmurs, pointing to Orion's belt. "They're guiding us, even now, showing us the way forward." Daniel gurgles happily, reaching toward the sky as if trying to grasp the stars themselves. Eleanor smiles, tears streaming silently down her face. For the first time in years, she feels at peace. The past cannot be undone, but the future holds infinite possibilities. And as she looks down at the child in her arms, she knows that no matter what lies ahead, they will face it together. Above them, the wind rustles through the trees, carrying with it the faint echo of laughter and whispered prayers. Life moves forward, ever changing, ever unfolding. And within the quiet halls of Maplewood Nursing Home, a new chapter begins, one written not in grief, but in hope.